it's Steve with Tower Genius. This is video number 2 in our series of the 7 deadliest mistakes that cell tower landlords make or property owners make. And this one, we'll call it the 7 deadliest mistakes that landlords make when extending their cell site lease agreements, either on a rooftop or with a cell tower, like a tower company like American Tower Corporation, Crown Castle, or SBA Communications. So, all right, let's go through the list here. Number 1, the top mistake that people make when extending their leases is negotiating without knowing who the tenants and subtenants are on the tower. You know, knowledge is power. You need to know who those tenants are. We need to know how long they've been there, and so we can figure out what this thing is worth. Obviously, a multi-carrier, multi-tenant tower is going to be more valuable than a single-tenant tower, but don't start negotiating without knowing who the tenants are. That's a big no-no. All right. The next biggest mistake that people make when extending their cell tower lease agreements are signing a rent guarantee or lease optimization term sheet. Yeah. God bless George Carlin. He had those oxymorons, like giant shrimp, jumbo shrimp, I'm sorry, but anyway, signing a rent guarantee or lease optimization term sheet, lease optimization sounds like a really cool term. It's I guess it's wonderful for the folks that love your lease so much, but yeah, lease optimization is only downwards for you as a property owner. You really shouldn't sign one of those things, but there's no guarantees in life. If there are some technology changes that are going to make towers obsolete at some point, no rent reduction that you give them will secure your site. And again, keep in mind that a lot of these proposals, they're going after property owners in, let's say, in the middle of Oklahoma. I saw one earlier this week, and the property owner was making, I don't know, less than like $1,200, and they were, it wasn't excessive at all. Actually, the site was undervalued, but they were still going after 30% rent reduction. I mean, absolutely insane. Don't do it. Don't sign it. Call us if you have questions. We're happy to talk to you. So the next biggest, deadliest mistake that people make is extending a lease agreement in excess of 30 years. So we covered this a little bit on the earlier video. This is for a lease extension. 30 years, I wouldn't go beyond that. And people give them 40, 50-year extensions. That's just nuts. And they'll tack it on to whatever you have remaining. So if you have, you give a carrier a 40-year extension and you have 9 years remaining, well, that's probably for the rest of your life if you're an adult. So just don't do it. The next biggest, deadliest mistake property owners make when extending their cell tower lease agreements is not checking to see if the carrier is in compliance with their lease. Well, what do I mean by that? This is really prevalent mostly on rooftop cell sites. So my business partner Kevin Donahue and I have looked at hundreds and hundreds, well actually thousands of rooftop cell sites and leases over the years. We've been on countless rooftops. We both came from working from the other side of the business before we started doing this 14 years ago. If a carrier, let's call it T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, one of these carriers has their lease premises listed as 150 square feet, and you take out your tape measure and you see they're at 155 square feet, well, guess what? They're in default. So don't extend your lease agreement. Don't say that no defaults exist until you actually know that no defaults exist. That's a big one. And you want to make sure that if they are in default, well, this is a chance to exercise a little leverage and squeeze them where it hurts and have that benefit you. So don't extend it without checking it out. The next biggest mistake that property owners and cell tower landlords make when extending their cell site lease agreements is giving the tower company a right of first refusal. Oh my gosh, it happens all the time. The right of first refusal, or ROFR as it's so referred to in the industry, is a provision that basically drives down the value of your rent. It's there so the tower companies can protect their investment, let's call it. And they want to make sure that you don't get a competitive offer if you decide to sell this, do a lease buyout. And if you don't have a ROFR in the deal, if there's no ROFR, right of first refusal in the lease, these companies want it, and they want you to give it to them for basically free. Like, it's almost like they're entitled to it. So There is other language that we can suggest to you that still gives the tower companies what they need so they can sleep well at night and all that, but gives you, the landlord, the ability to get a competitive offer if you decide to sell at some point. So don't be yoked with one of these right of first refusal provisions that's onerous and unnecessary. All right, and the next biggest mistake is, well, how should I say this? Not calling Tower Genius. So remember, calling Tower Genius, Kevin Donahue, myself, Steve Casella, for initial consultation. We'll do a 30-minute call with you. We charge $29.99 for that, just because we are really trying to focus on landlords and clients, potential clients that actually have a tower, because we get so many people call us that just want one. So we have a small barrier to entry, and if you end up hiring us afterwards, we'll refund that. Well, actually, it'll be applied to your bill. But give us a call at 888-313-9750. Talking to us will probably cost you $29.99, but not talking to Tower Genius could literally cost you a small fortune. Thank you. Yeah, and another one here, I guess this is number 6 or number 5, I lost count. Another big mistake that property owners make when negotiating a cell tower lease extension is improper management of electrical submeter billing reimbursement. So let's say a building owner has a large commercial building with 20 or 30 tenants in their offices, whatnot, and there's one meter coming into the building, and there are sub meters for the carriers, and they forget, or the property manager forgets over time. This is like a little small thing, but they forget to send the billing for reimbursement, and for years and years and years, and often for decades, the carriers will be using your power, and hey, if you didn't send them a bill, they're just going to be you're going to be paying for them to operate a cell site at your building. And we actually saw an example of this last year in the Northeast. Property owner had a large commercial building, and they had been paying for Verizon, for Sprint, for T-Mobile, and AT&T, and another tenant for between 20 and 30 years, and they provided free power. We helped them get back about $500,000 of that, and they were obviously thrilled about that. But you need to be monitoring that, and before you extend that lease, make sure that that electrical metering is done properly. So if you have a question about that, you need to talk to us. And another, I guess, the final largest mistake that property owners make, and I see this very frequently, Kevin and I come across this, is when a property owner allows that clock to tick down and have less than 2 years left before negotiating their extension. So American Tower, Crown Castle, SBA will be contacting them for like 5-10 years, asking them to extend the lease, and they're like, well, I'm gonna make them sweat. I'm gonna take this down to the wire. The problem is when you get down to 2 years remaining on the lease, these tower companies, they have a responsibility towards their clients, which are Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, etc. And if they're not sure if that tower is going to be secure, it's going to be there, and they can extend it and lock this in, they need to let their clients know that. And Verizon and AT&T and these companies are going to start issuing search rings with their real estate departments, and they're going to start signing option agreements with your neighbors in the event that you play hardball and you don't move forward. So you're actually putting yourself in a bad negotiating position. Now, this is not true for rooftops and rooftop cell sites. You see that often with T-Mobile and AT&T, especially T-Mobile, where they'll let this thing tick down to 6 months before they get serious. Before that, it's all rent reduction letters, but then they finally figure out that they need to do something. And it takes about, in a lot of these busy markets, about 2 years to extend those leases. To relocate a site or develop a site. So anyway, it's funny that T-Mobile puts themselves in these horrible negotiating positions all the time. But if you have a tower, don't let it tick down to 2 years. Typically, when you're within that 10-year, that final 2 5-year options, that's when you want to get. That's the sweet spot to get something done. And the tower companies will be a little more flexible terms. At least that's what we found. Helping hundreds and hundreds of cell tower landlords deal with American Tower, SBA, and Crown Castle. And anyway, these were the top 7, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon. Take care.